My son-in-law called me a failure at my daughter's funeral. Not behind my back. Right to my face. In front of 200 people. Maybe now Tyler can have real role models, Bryce Hamilton announced, loud enough for the entire first row to hear, instead of some broken-down soldier living off government handouts. I was standing there in my dress uniform, Purple Heart pinned to my chest, watching them lower my Rachel into the ground. 34 years old, gone from complications nobody saw coming. And this hedge fund prince, 6'2" in his $3,000 suit, was using her funeral to humiliate me. The other mourners went silent, waiting to see if the old cripple would break down, cry, beg. Instead, I looked him dead in the eye and nodded once. I understand, son. What Bryce didn't know was that I'd been documenting his mistakes for months, and he'd just made the biggest one of his life. Stick around. You're about to hear how a broken soldier destroyed a millionaire. The systematic destruction of my relationship with my grandson started immediately. Within 48 hours of burying Rachel, Bryce had changed every lock on the house I'd been visiting twice a week for 3 years. The house where I'd taught 10-year-old Tyler how to throw a curveball. Where we'd built model airplanes, and I'd told him stories about his mom growing up. I found out when I showed up for our regular Wednesday dinner with a bag of Tyler's favorite In-N-Out burgers. James! Bryce opened the door just wide enough to block my view inside. We need to establish some boundaries. I brought Tyler his usual, double-double, no pickles. Tyler's dietary habits are my responsibility now. His voice had that corporate boardroom tone he used when he wanted to sound important, as is his overall development. I could hear Tyler's voice from somewhere inside. Is that Grandpa? Did he bring... Tyler, go to your room. Bryce's command was sharp, final. The kind of tone you'd use on a subordinate, not a grieving child who'd just lost his mother. The house went quiet. Bryce, the boy just lost his mom. He needs family right now. He needs stability, structure, positive influences. Each word was measured, deliberate. Look, James, I appreciate what you think you've done for this family. But Tyler's 10 years old. He's forming his understanding of success, of what it means to be a man in America. I set the burger bag down on the porch railing. And what does that mean exactly? It means he needs to see role models who built something, who created value, who didn't. He gestured at my prosthetic leg. Who didn't destroy their bodies for government paychecks? The silence stretched between us. Somewhere behind him, I could hear Tyler crying softly. I'm not trying to be cruel here, Bryce continued, his voice taking on that fake sympathy tone wealthy people use when they're about to screw you over. But Tyler asked me why you live in that tiny apartment, why you drive a 15-year-old Honda, why you can't afford nice things. How do I explain that some people make choices that lead to dependency? My daughter never seemed to mind where I lived. Rachel had her own issues with boundaries. God rest her soul. He actually made the sign of the cross, this man who'd never set foot in church except for the wedding. But I won't let those patterns continue with Tyler. That's when I started documenting everything. Not just the conversations, though I began recording those too with a simple app on my phone that I'd learned about from my nephew who works in law enforcement. But the patterns, the systematic isolation, the Christmas gifts I sent that came back marked return to sender, the birthday card that Tyler never mentioned receiving, the 3 times I tried calling the house phone, only to have Bryce answer and inform me that Tyler was busy with activities that actually benefit his development. What kind of activities? I'd asked during the 3rd call. Tennis lessons, SAT prep tutoring, yes, at 10, it's never too early. Networking events where he can meet the children of successful families. Networking events? He's a 4th grader. He's the heir to a significant portfolio, James. The Hamilton family has expectations, standards. The Hamilton family. As if Bryce hadn't grown up in a middle-class split level in Bakersfield, son of an insurance adjuster and a part-time bookkeeper. As if he hadn't met Rachel at a community college where she was tutoring struggling students for free. But I'd learned something in Afghanistan that served me well in civilian life. Sometimes the best response to enemy contact is to observe and gather intelligence before engaging, so I started making notes. Dates, times, exact quotes. I created a timeline of Bryce's behavior toward Tyler, toward me, toward Rachel's memory. I researched the hedge fund where he worked, Hamilton Capital Management, named after himself with typical humility, and I discovered something interesting about Hamilton Capital's client list, specifically their management of the Riverside Veterans Relief Fund, the charity that was supposed to provide emergency financial assistance to disabled veterans and their families. The fund that had somehow dispersed 40% less money to actual veterans in 2023 than in 2022, despite receiving record donations. The fund that Bryce Hamilton managed personally. I printed out the public filings, cross-referenced the bank statements I could access, made some calls to friends who understood forensic accounting better than I did. By February, I had a pretty clear picture of where some of that veteran relief money was actually going, and it wasn't to any veterans I knew. But the real wake-up call came on Tyler's birthday in March. I wasn't invited to the party, of course, but Mrs. Chen from next door, who'd known Rachel since high school, sent me photos from the fence line. 20 kids from Tyler's private school, a professional bouncy castle setup, catered food from some fancy place in Beverly Hills, and Tyler sitting alone at the head table, looking miserable. Mrs. Chen texted me later that night. He kept asking the other kids if they'd seen his grandpa. Bryce told everyone you were no longer part of Tyler's life due to health concerns. Health concerns. That's when I realized this wasn't just about money or class, or Bryce's pathetic need to feel superior to a disabled veteran. This was about erasing me completely. The call that changed everything came on a Tuesday night in April. I was sitting in my small apartment, working my way through bank statements for the Veterans Relief Fund, when my phone rang. Bryce's number. "James, we need to talk." His voice had an edge I'd never heard before. Desperate. Angry. "What's on your mind, son?" "Cut the sun bullshit. I know what you've been doing." I set down my reading glasses, activated the recording app I'd gotten into the habit of using whenever Bryce called. "I'm not sure what you mean." "Mrs. Chen told Tyler you've been asking questions about me. About my work. About private family matters. I asked how Tyler was doing at his birthday party. The party I wasn't invited to. Because you don't belong there." The corporate composure cracked completely. "Jesus Christ, James, when are you going to get it through your thick skull? You're embarrassing. You're a reminder of everything Tyler needs to move past." "And what's that, exactly?" "Failure. Dependency. The whole sad story of your generation thinking the government owes you something because you volunteered to get your leg blown off." I let the silence hang there. Let him hear his own words. "Tyler is going to be somebody, James. He's going to attend Stanford, like I did. He's going to build wealth, create value, contribute to society in ways that actually matter, not whatever it is you think you accomplished over there." "I see. Do you really? Because I don't think you understand what's at stake here. Tyler has a trust fund worth more than you'll see in 10 lifetimes. He has connections to families that control serious money in this state. He has opportunities that you can't even comprehend." Another pause. I could hear ice clinking in a glass. Bryce was drinking, and every time he mentions his war hero grandpa to these people, I have to explain why his family tree includes some broken-down veteran living in government housing. "Is that what you told him? That I live in government housing?" "You might as well. That pathetic little apartment, that ancient Honda, those polyester shirts from Target. You think Tyler doesn't notice? You think his friends' parents don't notice?" The recording app showed 4 minutes and counting. This was going better than I'd hoped. Last week at the country club, Tyler told the Weatherby family they control 3 congressional districts and own half the commercial real estate in Orange County. He told them his grandfather served in Afghanistan and fought the bad guys. You know what Mr. Weatherby asked me? I imagine you're going to tell me. He asked me why I let my son spend time with someone who clearly has PTSD and anger management issues. Why I was exposing Tyler to that kind of instability. What did you tell him? I told him the situation was being handled. The words hit like shrapnel, clean, precise, devastating. And how exactly is it being handled, Bryce? Tyler thinks you're sick, confused, that the war damaged your brain and you sometimes say things that aren't true. That's why he shouldn't trust memories of conversations with you or stories you've told him about his mother. My hand tightened on the phone. You told him his mother's stories weren't true? I told him his mother had her own issues with reality. Depression, obviously. Poor judgment in relationships. A tendency to romanticize people who hadn't actually accomplished anything meaningful. 7 minutes of recording now. Pure gold. Tyler's a smart kid, James. He's starting to understand that some people peak in high school, or in their case, in some desert halfway around the world, fighting a war that didn't accomplish anything anyway. Anything else you'd like to share about my service? Your service? He actually laughed. You mean the thing that ended with you getting disability checks for the rest of your life? The thing that taught you to follow orders instead of giving them? The thing that left you unable to provide for your own daughter without government assistance? I provided for Rachel just fine. Really? Because when she needed real medical care, serious treatment, who paid for it? When she wanted to go back to school, who covered tuition? When Tyler needed private schools, specialized tutoring, the kind of educational foundation that actually matters, who wrote those checks? The recording hit 10 minutes. Bryce was unloading everything now. You want to know the truth, James? Rachel married me because she was tired of being poor, tired of living like her father, scraping by on military benefits and part-time jobs. She wanted Tyler to have opportunities, real opportunities, not just stories about some grandfather who used to be tough before he got himself blown up. That's an interesting perspective. It's the only perspective that matters. Because here's what's going to happen. You're going to stop calling, stop showing up, stop asking neighbors about my family. Stop whatever pathetic investigation you think you're conducting into my business affairs. My blood went cold. He knew. Oh, yes, James. I know about your little phone calls to the Veterans Relief Fund office, your questions about disbursement schedules and fund management. Did you really think nobody would mention that some disabled veteran was asking pointed questions about confidential donor information, just trying to understand how the charity works? The charity works fine. It works exactly the way it's supposed to work. And if you keep sticking your nose where it doesn't belong, I'll make sure Tyler understands that his grandfather isn't just unstable, he's delusional. The line went quiet except for his breathing. Stay away from my family, James. This is your only warning. The call ended. I sat there for a long moment, staring at my phone screen. 11 minutes and 37 seconds of Bryce Hamilton destroying himself. Time to call in some old favors. The envelope arrived by certified mail 3 days later. Cease and desist order. Official letterhead from Whitman Cross and Associates, one of those downtown L.A. law firms that charges $800 an hour to intimidate people. I read it twice, sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had gone cold. Mr. Morrison is hereby notified that any further contact, direct or indirect, with minor child Tyler Hamilton Morrison constitutes harassment under California Family Code Section 3100. Any violation will result in immediate legal action, including but not limited to restraining orders and criminal charges for stalking. Stalking. My own grandson. The letter detailed specific allegations. Unwanted surveillance of family residents. Interrogation of neighbors regarding private family matters. Attempts to access confidential financial records. Erratic behavior consistent with documented PTSD. There it was. The PTSD card. Bryce had done his homework. The final paragraph was the killing shot. Mr. Morrison's unstable mental condition, exacerbated by combat-related trauma and substance dependency issues, poses a clear danger to the emotional and physical welfare of the minor child. Substance dependency. I hadn't touched alcohol since 1987. I set the letter down and walked to my bedroom closet, pushed aside the civilian clothes until I found what I was looking for. My old Army footlocker. Olive drab, scratched from 3 deployments. Combination lock that still clicked to the same numbers I'd memorized 25 years ago. Inside, service records, commendation letters, and something Bryce Hamilton definitely hadn't counted on. A business card. Agent Patricia Stone, FBI Financial Crimes Division. She'd given it to me 2 years ago after I'd helped identify a contractor who was overbilling veteran medical claims. If you ever see anything that doesn't look right with veteran services, she'd said, call me directly. I pulled out my phone and dialed. Agent Stone? This is Colonel Morrison. We worked together on the Riverside medical fraud case. Yes, sir, that's right. Listen, I think we need to talk. She agreed to meet me the next morning at a diner near the Federal Building. Neutral ground. I spent that night organizing everything I'd collected over the past 6 weeks. Bank statements showing suspicious transfers from the Veterans Relief Fund. Bryce's recorded phone rants about my service and his plans to cut me off from Tyler. Screenshots of Hamilton Capital's public filings versus their actual disbursement records. But most importantly, I opened my laptop and logged into my Coinbase account for the first time in months. The number on the screen still caught me off guard. $4,721,847.63. I'd started buying Bitcoin in 2018 with small amounts, $50 here, $100 there, money I could afford to lose from my disability checks. Everyone thought I was crazy. Digital money, Rachel had laughed. Dad, you can barely work your smartphone. But I'd done my research, studied the technology, understood that scarcity creates value. And I'd kept buying, even when it crashed, even when people called it a scam. Especially then. The portfolio printout was 15 pages long. Every transaction, every purchase, every percentage gain documented in black and white. Nearly $5 million built from the government handouts that Bryce loved to mock. I stared at those numbers for a long time, thinking about what they meant, what they could do. Then I called Agent Stone back. Patricia? James Morrison again. I need to move up our meeting, and I think you're going to want to bring someone from white-collar crimes. What exactly are we talking about here, Colonel? A hedge fund manager who's been embezzling from a veteran charity. But that's not the interesting part. What's the interesting part? The interesting part is that I can prove it. And I've got about 5 million reasons why the Bureau should take this case seriously. The silence on the other end lasted 10 seconds. I'll make some calls. Can you be downtown in 2 hours? Agent Stone, one more thing. The target doesn't know about my financial situation. I'd like to keep it that way until we're ready to move. Understood. This stays compartmentalized until we have all the evidence. I hung up and looked at the cease and desist letter one more time. Tyler was going to learn some important lessons in the next few weeks. About integrity, about consequences, about what happens when you mess with the wrong grandfather. But first, Bryce Hamilton was going to learn something his Ivy League MBA never taught him. Never underestimate a man who's been through real combat. We don't just survive, we adapt. We plan, we execute, and we never, ever leave a fallen comrade behind. Tyler was my mission now. The Hamilton Capital Management Office occupied the entire 23rd floor of a glass tower in Century City. Marble lobby, mahogany reception desk, oil paintings that probably cost more than most people's cars. I walked in wearing my best suit navy blue from Men's Warehouse, 15 years old but still pressed sharp, and approached the receptionist. James Morrison to see Mr. Hamilton. I'm a prospective client. She was maybe 25, blonde, the kind of polished professional beauty that screams expensive private college. Her smile faltered slightly when she took in my appearance, the slight limp from my prosthetic, the polyester tie Bryce had mocked. Do you have an appointment, Mr. Morrison? I'm afraid not. But I think Bryce will want to see me. I pulled out a manila envelope, let her glimpse the Coinbase portfolio summary inside. I'm looking to invest approximately $5 million. Her demeanor changed instantly. Let me check his calendar. 5 minutes later, I was sitting in Bryce's corner office, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, watching my son-in-law try to process what he was seeing. James. His voice was carefully controlled, but I caught the tremor underneath. This is unexpected. I thought it was time we had a professional conversation, son. His desk was a masterpiece of executive theater. Multiple monitors displaying stock prices, crystal paperweights, framed photo of him shaking hands with some politician I didn't recognize. And there, in the corner, a picture of Tyler at his 10th birthday party, the party I hadn't been invited to. I wasn't aware you were interested in investment services. Oh, I've been investing for years. Small amounts, nothing dramatic. But recently I've been reconsidering my portfolio allocation. I slid the envelope across his desk. Perhaps you could review my current holdings and provide some guidance. He opened the envelope. I watched his face as he scanned the first page, then the second. By the third page, his corporate mask was slipping. This shows a balance of nearly $5 million. 4.7 to be precise. Bitcoin mostly, with some Ethereum and a few smaller positions. Purchased over the past 6 years with money from my disability payments. The room went very quiet. Through the glass wall of his office, I could see other employees working at their desks. Young men in expensive suits who probably made more in bonuses than I'd ever made in salary. I wasn't aware you had experience with cryptocurrency investing. Oh, I've had lots of time to learn new things. Retirement gives a man plenty of opportunity for education. I leaned back in the client chair, which probably cost more than my monthly rent. I've been particularly interested in financial regulations, SEC compliance requirements, the legal obligations of investment managers handling charitable funds. His hand tightened on the portfolio papers. For instance, I've been reading about the Veterans Relief Fund. Fascinating operation. 3.2 million in donations last year according to the public filings, but only 1.8 million dispersed to actual veterans. Administrative costs are a necessary part of any charitable operation, of course. Though a 43% administrative cost ratio does seem aggressive, especially for a fund that's supposed to help disabled veterans pay for medical equipment. I gestured toward my prosthetic leg. This little beauty cost the VA $47,000, but if I were a civilian veteran trying to get assistance from your relief fund, how much could I expect to receive? The fund operates according to strict guidelines. Guidelines you personally developed according to the documentation I've reviewed. Very thorough work, Bryce. Very creative accounting. He set the portfolio down carefully. James, I think there may be some misunderstanding about... Oh, there's no misunderstanding. I've had several very productive conversations with people who understand these things much better than I do. Federal people. The kind who take veteran charity fraud very seriously. The color drained from his face. But I'm not here about the charity today. I'm here as a potential client. I smiled pleasantly. After all, a man with nearly $5 million needs professional investment guidance. Someone with integrity. Someone who understands fiduciary responsibility. James, I think you should know that I've been under a great deal of stress lately. Family stress, you mean? The difficulty of managing a grieving 10-year-old while maintaining your professional obligations? I pulled out my phone, scrolled to the voice recording from 3 nights ago. I completely understand. In fact, I have some recordings that demonstrate just how much pressure you've been under. His eyes locked on my phone screen. Would you like to hear them? I think your colleagues might find your perspectives on veteran service very enlightening, particularly the part about how I got myself blown up and how my military service didn't accomplish anything anyway. You recorded our private conversations? California is a one-party consent state, son, perfectly legal, and very educational. I stood up, straightened my polyester tie. I think I'll shop around for investment services. Maybe find someone who actually respects the sacrifice veterans have made for this country. I walked toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Bryce, you might want to review the Veterans Relief Fund disbursement records for the past 18 months. I have a feeling some very detail-oriented federal agents are going to be asking pointed questions about where that money actually went. James, wait. Give my love to Tyler. Tell him his grandfather thinks about him every day. I left him sitting there staring at the portfolio that proved everything he'd assumed about me was wrong. As the elevator descended toward the lobby, I checked my phone. Agent Stone had texted, "Financial forensics team assigned. Full investigation authorized. How soon can you provide the evidence packages?" I texted back, "Evidence is ready." And our target just learned he's in more trouble than he thought. Phase 1 complete. Bryce now knew he was dealing with someone who had both resources and federal connections, but he still thought he could control the narrative. Still believed his money and connections would protect him. He was about to learn how wrong he could be. The confrontation came at Tyler's school soccer game the following Saturday. I'd been watching from the parking lot, technically not violating the restraining order since I remained off school property. Tyler was playing midfielder for the Roosevelt Elementary Eagles, wearing number 7, Rachel's old number from when she played high school soccer. I was sitting in my Honda, windows down, just proud to see my grandson running across that field when Bryce appeared at my driver's side window. You think you're clever, don't you? He was wearing tennis whites, probably coming from the country club. His face was flushed, either from exercise or anger. Just watching Tyler play, from a legal distance. The office visit was cute, James. Very dramatic. But if you think some cryptocurrency luck is going to intimidate me, you're even more delusional than I thought. Other parents were starting to notice the commotion. A few had their phones out, probably wondering why this well-dressed man was confronting an older veteran in the school parking lot. I'm not trying to intimidate anyone, son. Just making sure Tyler knows his grandfather cares about him. Tyler doesn't need a grandfather who harasses his family and spreads lies about his father's business. What lies would those be? Bryce's voice rose loud enough for the nearby parents to hear clearly. The fantasy that I've done anything wrong with veteran charity funds, the delusion that some washed-up soldier with a computer can understand complex financial instruments. Mrs. Peterson from Tyler's class was recording now. So was Coach Martinez. You want to know the truth about your grandfather, Tyler? Bryce suddenly shouted toward the field. Tyler stopped mid-play, looking toward the parking lot with confusion. Your grandfather is a broken man who can't accept that his war was meaningless and his sacrifice was pointless. The entire sideline went silent. Parents, coaches, even the referee stopped the game. Bryce, I started. No! Let's have this conversation publicly since you seem to enjoy making private matters public. His voice carried across the entire soccer field. You lost your leg for nothing, James. Nothing. And now you're so desperate for relevance that you're stalking my family and making up conspiracy theories about my work. Tyler was crying now, standing alone in the middle of the field while his teammates stared. You think Bitcoin makes you special? You think some lucky investments give you the right to disrupt my son's life? You're still just a crippled old man living on government handouts. That's when Master Sergeant Rodriguez stepped forward. I hadn't seen him approach, but there he was. 60-year-old Ricardo Rodriguez, Purple Heart recipient, Vietnam veteran, and Tyler's assistant coach. He'd been watching the whole exchange. Excuse me, Rodriguez said quietly. Did you just call this man crippled? Bryce spun around. This is a private family matter. This is a public parking lot where you just disrespected a decorated veteran in front of children. Rodriguez's voice had the kind of authority that comes from 3 decades of military service, including your own son. Other parents were gathering now. The Mackenzie family, their oldest son was in Tyler's class. The Hendersons, whose daughter played on the same soccer team. People Bryce would have to face at school events for years to come. Colonel Morrison served his country with honor, Rodriguez continued. He earned his Purple Heart in Afghanistan protecting people like you, and you just called his sacrifice meaningless in front of a crowd of children. Bryce realized his mistake too late. These weren't his hedge fund colleagues or country club friends. These were regular families who actually respected military service. I think you owe Colonel Morrison an apology, said Coach Martinez. And maybe you should think about whether this is the kind of behavior you want your son to witness, added Mrs. Peterson. Bryce looked around the circle of disapproving faces, then back at Tyler, who was still standing frozen on the soccer field. For the first time since I'd known him, Bryce Hamilton looked genuinely afraid. This isn't over, he muttered to me. No, I agreed quietly. It's not. But as he walked away, I realized something important had just happened. The community had seen his true character, and they didn't like what they saw. The social pressure was building. His carefully constructed image was beginning to crack. Memorial Day was 3 weeks away. The smear campaign started on Monday morning. I found out when Mrs. Chen texted me a screenshot from the Roosevelt Elementary Parent Facebook group. Someone had posted a safety concern about an unstable individual who has been observed surveilling school events. The post didn't mention my name, but the description was specific enough. Disabled veteran with documented PTSD and substance abuse issues who has been legally prohibited from contact with his grandson due to erratic behavior. 43 comments in 2 hours, most from parents I'd never met, expressing concern about dangerous individuals near their children. But then something interesting happened. Coach Martinez posted a response. I was present for the incident described. The unstable individual was Colonel James Morrison, Purple Heart recipient, who was sitting quietly in his car watching his grandson play soccer. The person creating the disturbance was actually a parent who publicly berated this decorated veteran in front of children. Master Sergeant Rodriguez chimed in. Colonel Morrison is a respected member of our veteran community. Anyone spreading false information about his mental health or service record should be ashamed. Within hours, the parent group had split into 2 camps. The Bryce supporters, mostly other wealthy parents from the private school, crowd versus the Rodriguez faction, which included teachers, coaches, and working-class families who actually understood military service. But Bryce wasn't finished. Tuesday brought a carefully worded email to the VFW Post 847 leadership copied to every veteran organization in Riverside County. Dear fellow veterans, I write to express concern about recent behavior by James Morrison, who has been spreading false accusations about my management of veteran charity funds. As a successful businessman who has donated significant resources to veteran causes, I feel obligated to warn you that Mr. Morrison appears to be suffering from combat-related psychological issues that may compromise his judgment and reliability. The email was masterfully crafted. Respectful tone, concern for veteran welfare, subtle implications about my mental state. It even included a donation offer. To demonstrate my commitment to veteran services, I'm prepared to make a $50,000 contribution to any legitimate veteran organization that can provide Mr. Morrison with the professional help he clearly needs. $50,000. Blood money, essentially, to buy veteran silence about his embezzlement. But Bryce had made a critical error. He'd targeted my brothers. Within 6 hours, I had phone calls from 8 different veteran organizations, not asking me to get help, asking me what I needed to destroy the son of a bitch who was trying to buy them off. Colonel, this is Dennis Walsh from American Legion Post 289. We got this email about you today. Want to tell us what's really going on? Steve Kowalski, Disabled American Veterans. Brother, somebody's trying real hard to make you look bad. What do you need from us? James, it's Maria Sanchez from Women Veterans Alliance. This hedge fund punk thinks he can bribe veterans to abandon one of our own? He's about to learn how wrong he is. By Wednesday evening, I had a coalition of 12 veteran organizations demanding a full investigation to Hamilton Capital's management of the Veterans Relief Fund. Not because I'd asked them to, because Bryce had insulted their intelligence with his transparent bribery attempt. But the real breakthrough came Thursday morning. Agent Stone called with news. James, we've completed the preliminary financial analysis. You were right about the embezzlement, but it's worse than we thought. $340,000 over 18 months, not just from veteran funds, but from 2 other charities his firm manages. What's the timeline for prosecution? That's the interesting part. We want to coordinate the arrest with maximum impact, create a deterrent effect for other white-collar criminals who think veteran charities are easy targets. What did you have in mind? Well, there's a big Memorial Day ceremony coming up at Riverside National Cemetery. 500 veterans expected, significant media coverage. If we were to make the arrest at a public event like that, the pieces clicked into place. You want to arrest him in front of the entire veteran community. We want to make a statement that stealing from veterans has consequences. And frankly, after reading his email trying to bribe veteran organizations, we're taking this personally. Agent Stone, I may have a way to make that even more effective. I'm listening. What if I told you I could guarantee Bryce would be at that ceremony, and that he'd be expecting to give a speech about his charitable contributions to veteran causes? How would you guarantee that? I looked at my Coinbase account balance, $4,721,847.63. More than enough for what I had in mind. Because I'm about to make him an offer he can't refuse. One that will put him at center stage exactly where we need him. James, what are you planning? Justice, Agent Stone. Public, undeniable, perfectly legal justice. Memorial Day was 10 days away. Time to set the final trap. Bryce thought he could buy his way out of this mess. He was about to learn that some things aren't for sale, especially a veteran's honor. The next phase required precision, military precision. I spent Friday morning at the Federal Building with Agent Stone and her financial crimes team, laying out every piece of evidence I'd collected over the past 2 months. Let's walk through this systematically, Agent Stone said, spreading documents across the conference table. What exactly did you find? I opened my laptop and pulled up the spreadsheet I'd been building since January. Hamilton Capital manages 3 charitable funds: Veterans Relief Fund, Riverside Children's Foundation, and the Inland Empire Homeless Coalition. Total assets under management, $14.2 million, and the irregularities? Start with the Veterans Relief Fund. Official disbursements to veterans in 2023, $1.8 million. But look at these bank transfers. I highlighted specific entries. 7 transfers totaling $340,000 to Hamilton's personal account, disguised as administrative consulting fees. Agent Stone's forensics specialist, a sharp-eyed woman named Detective Reyes, leaned forward. What's the normal administrative percentage for funds this size? Industry standard is 8 to 12%. Hamilton was taking 27%, and that's just what I could trace. I clicked to the next spreadsheet tab. But here's where it gets interesting. The Children's Foundation shows similar patterns, 215,000 in suspicious transfers over the same period. Jesus, Reyes muttered. 500,000 total? 555,000 to be exact, all disguised as legitimate business expenses, conference travel that never happened, consulting fees for services never rendered, equipment purchases that were never delivered. Agent Stone was taking notes. How did you identify these patterns? 25 years of military logistics training, you learned to spot discrepancies in resource allocation. I pulled up another document. But the smoking gun is this. Hamilton used Veterans Relief Fund money to cover his personal trading losses. Look at these dates. I showed them a timeline I'd constructed. March 15th, Hamilton's personal trading account loses $87,000 in a cryptocurrency position. March 16th, Veterans Relief Fund transfers $87,000 to Hamilton Capital for emergency operational expenses. That's not even subtle, Reyes said. He got sloppy. Desperate. The man has serious gambling problems. Not just trading, but actual casinos. I have photographs of him at the Commerce Casino poker room, dropping thousands while veterans were being denied assistance for basic medical equipment. Agent Stone reviewed the photos I'd taken during my surveillance. How did you get these? I may be retired, but I still remember how to conduct reconnaissance. Bryce has a routine. Every Thursday night, Commerce Casino, high-stakes poker. Last Thursday, he lost $14,000. That same week, the Veterans Relief Fund denied assistance to Marine Sergeant Williams for a wheelchair lift installation. I pulled out Sergeant Williams's denial letter. Reason given, insufficient funds for non-essential equipment. Wheelchair accessibility non-essential. The room went quiet. There's more, I continued. I've identified 17 veterans who were denied legitimate assistance while Hamilton was stealing their money. Purple Heart recipients denied prosthetic upgrades. Families denied emergency housing assistance. A Gold Star mother denied funds for her husband's funeral expenses. I handed Agent Stone a thick folder. Names, dates, amounts denied, documentation of their legitimate need. Every one of these people deserved help that was stolen to fund Hamilton's lifestyle. Detective Reyes was shaking her head. This is prosecutorial gold. How did you compile all this? Veterans talk to each other. We have networks. When someone gets screwed over by a charity that's supposed to help us, word spreads. I opened my phone to show them the veteran group chat I'd been monitoring. 43 veterans in Riverside County alone have stories about Hamilton Capital's fund management. Agent Stone leaned back in her chair. James, this is enough evidence to put Hamilton away for 15 to 20 years. Federal embezzlement, wire fraud, charity fraud. The U.S. attorney is going to love this case. But we still need to catch him in the act, Detective Reyes added. Something that proves criminal intent beyond any reasonable doubt. That's when I smiled. Actually, I think I can arrange that. I told them about my plan for Memorial Day. How I was going to use my cryptocurrency wealth to set a trap that would expose Hamilton's character in front of 500 veterans and every major news outlet in Southern California. You want to donate $500,000 to veteran charities at the Memorial Day ceremony? Agent Stone asked. I want to challenge Hamilton to match my donation, publicly, in front of cameras and witnesses. A man who's been stealing from veterans asked to donate $500,000 of his own money to the same cause. He'll never agree to that, Reyes said. He'll have to. His reputation depends on it. And when he can't produce the money, when he tries to make excuses or deflect or blame others, that's when you arrest him. Agent Stone was nodding slowly. Public humiliation followed by immediate arrest. Maximum deterrent effect. Plus, I added, Tyler will be there. My grandson needs to see what happens when you steal from people who sacrificed everything for this country. James, are you sure you want Tyler to witness his father's arrest? I thought about Rachel, about the values she'd tried to teach her son before she died, about integrity, honor, and standing up for what's right. Tyler needs to learn that actions have consequences, that money doesn't make you untouchable, that sometimes the right thing to do is the hardest thing to do. The plan was set. Memorial Day, Riverside National Cemetery, 1100 hours. Judgment Day for Bryce Hamilton. Memorial Day. Morning dawned clear and hot, typical for Riverside in late May. I arrived at the cemetery at 0900 hours, 2 hours before the ceremony. The groundskeepers were still setting up chairs on the main lawn, arranging them in precise rows facing the memorial wall where 5,000 names were etched in black granite. Master Sergeant Rodriguez found me standing near Rachel's grave, holding the folded American flag they'd given me at her funeral. "You ready for this, Colonel?" "As ready as I'll ever be, Sergeant." Rodriguez had coordinated everything with military precision. 12 veteran organizations represented, over 500 attendees confirmed, media from 4 different news outlets. The mayor was coming, 2 city council members, even Congressman Morrison, no relation despite the name, had arranged to attend. The FBI agents are in position. Agent Stone's team is scattered throughout the crowd. Detective Reyes is handling the arrest warrant. They'll move when you give the signal. I check my watch, 0947 hours. 13 minutes until the ceremony began. And Hamilton? He's here. He's arrived 20 minutes ago with Tyler and a camera crew from his hedge fund's PR company. Looks like he's planning to make a big production out of this. I walked toward the main ceremony area, my prosthetic leg clicking slightly on the paved walkway. 500 veterans and their families were taking their seats. American flags everywhere, red poppies pinned to lapels, the kind of solemn dignity that comes when warriors gather to honor their fallen. And there, in the front row, sat Bryce Hamilton. He was wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. His hair was styled, his tie was silk, and he had that confident smile he wore when he thought he was about to win something important. Tyler sat beside him, 10 years old in a small suit and tie, looking uncomfortable in the formal clothes. My grandson's eyes found mine across the crowd, and for just a moment, he smiled. That smile gave me strength for what came next. The ceremony began with the posting of colors, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence for the fallen. Congressman Morrison spoke about sacrifice and service. The VFW commander read the names of local veterans who had died in the past year. Then it was my turn. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special presentation today from one of our community's most decorated veterans, Colonel James Morrison, Purple Heart recipient." I walked to the podium, feeling 500 pairs of eyes on me. In the third row, Agent Stone gave me an almost imperceptible nod. "Thank you all for being here today to honor our fallen brothers and sisters." I want to talk about sacrifice, about service, and about making sure we take care of the veterans who are still fighting battles here at home. I paused, looking directly at Bryce. "Some of you know that my daughter Rachel passed away 3 months ago. She believed deeply in supporting veteran causes and making sure that those who served our country received the help they deserved when they came home." Murmurs of sympathy from the crowd. "In her memory, I want to announce a significant donation to veteran services in Riverside County. Effective immediately, I'm contributing $500,000 to establish the Rachel Morrison Veterans Emergency Fund." The crowd erupted in applause. I saw several news cameras swinging toward me, capturing the moment. This fund will provide immediate assistance to veterans and their families for medical equipment, emergency housing, educational support, and other critical needs that existing programs sometimes overlook. I let that word hang in the air for a moment. But I'm not finished, because I believe strongly that those who have prospered in our community should step up to support those who sacrificed for our freedom. I turned directly toward Bryce, who was starting to look uncomfortable. "I want to challenge other successful business leaders to match this donation, to prove that supporting veterans isn't just talk, it's action backed by real commitment." The crowd was murmuring, sensing something dramatic was about to happen. Specifically, I want to challenge Bryce Hamilton, CEO of Hamilton Capital Management, which has managed veteran charitable funds for the past 3 years. "Bryce, you've spoken eloquently about your commitment to veteran causes. Will you match my $500,000 donation today?" Every camera in the place swung toward Bryce. 500 veterans were staring at him, waiting for his response. He stood up slowly, that practiced smile still in place, but I could see sweat beading on his forehead despite the morning coolness. "James, this is very generous of you, very unexpected. It's a simple question, Bryce. Will you match my donation? $500,000 for veteran emergency services." The silence stretched. 30 seconds. 45. A full minute of dead air while the man who'd been stealing from veterans tried to figure out how to respond. Well, as you know, charitable giving requires careful planning, proper documentation. I have a certified check right here, I interrupted, pulling the check from my jacket pocket and holding it up for everyone to see. $500,000. Ready to deposit today. How about you? Tyler was looking up at his father with confusion. Why wasn't Dad immediately agreeing to help veterans? James, this kind of grandstanding, my voice carried across the silent cemetery. I'm asking a simple question. You've been managing veteran charity funds for 3 years. You've taken hundreds of thousands in management fees. Will you contribute your own money to help the veterans you claim to support? Bryce's composure finally cracked completely. I don't have to justify my charitable giving to you or anyone else. This is nothing but a pathetic attempt by a bitter old man to create drama because he can't accept that his daughter moved on from his failures. The crowd gasped. Several veterans started to rise from their seats. You want to know the truth about your hero? Bryce shouted, pointing at me. He's been stalking my family for months, making wild accusations about my business because he can't stand that a successful man provided for his daughter in ways he never could. That's when Agent Stone stepped forward, her FBI credentials clearly visible. Mr. Hamilton, I'm Agent Patricia Stone, FBI Financial Crimes Division. You're under arrest for embezzlement of charitable funds, wire fraud, and violation of federal laws governing nonprofit organizations. The cemetery erupted. Veterans on their feet, cameras flashing, Bryce's face going white as Agent Stone continued reading his rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Detective Reyes appeared with handcuffs while Agent Stone's team moved to secure the perimeter. This is insane, Bryce shouted as the cuffs clicked into place. James, tell them this is all lies. Tell them you made this up. I walked over to where Tyler was sitting, tears streaming down his face, and knelt beside him. Tyler, your father has been stealing money that was supposed to help veterans. Money that was supposed to help people like Sergeant Williams get a wheelchair ramp, or help families pay for their dad's funeral. But Dad said you were lying. I have proof, Tyler. The FBI has proof. Your father took money from people who needed help, and that's wrong. As they led Bryce away, he was still shouting, This is a setup. James orchestrated this whole thing. He's the one with millions in cryptocurrency. Where did that money really come from? But his words were lost in the crowd of veterans who were now surrounding me, shaking my hand, thanking me for exposing the theft from their community. Master Sergeant Rodriguez put his arm around Tyler's shoulders. Your grandfather is a hero, son. He just proved that nobody steals from veterans without consequences. Tyler looked up at me with Rachel's eyes. Grandpa, can I come home with you? We'll figure it out together, Tyler. But first, let's finish honoring the people who gave everything for this country. The ceremony continued with Bryce Hamilton in federal custody and my grandson by my side where he belonged. Justice served. Mission accomplished. 6 weeks later, I was sitting in family court with Tyler beside me, waiting for the judge to finalize the custody arrangement. Bryce was in federal prison awaiting trial on 14 counts of embezzlement and wire fraud. His bail had been set at $2 million. Money he couldn't access because the FBI had frozen all his accounts pending asset forfeiture proceedings. The Veterans Relief Fund had recovered $340,000 in stolen money, plus penalties. The other charities he'd looted were getting their money back, too. 17 veterans who'd been denied assistance were finally getting the help they deserved. Mr. Morrison, Judge Catherine Walsh said, looking over her reading glasses at the paperwork, given Mr. Hamilton's incarceration and the circumstances surrounding the original custody restrictions, I'm granting you temporary guardianship of Tyler Hamilton Morrison, pending the resolution of the criminal case. Tyler squeezed my hand. Does that mean I can live with you, Grandpa? It means we're family again, son. Outside the courthouse, Agent Stone was waiting with final paperwork. The U.S. attorney expects Hamilton to plead guilty within the month, she said. 15 to 20 years federal time, full restitution, lifetime ban from managing charitable funds. What about Hamilton Capital? Dissolved. Assets liquidated to pay restitution. The man's completely finished financially. Tyler was playing on his phone, probably texting his friends about missing another day of school. Agent Stone, I want to establish a proper foundation. Something that ensures this never happens again to other veterans. The Rachel Morrison Veterans Emergency Fund? Bigger than that. I want oversight protocols, mandatory auditing, federal reporting requirements. Make it impossible for another Bryce Hamilton to steal from people who serve this country. She nodded. I'll connect you with the right people at Justice. This case is going to change how veteran charities are regulated. As we walked to my Honda, Tyler insisted we keep the old car because it's more honest than those fancy ones. My grandson looked up at me. Grandpa, Mom always said you were the strongest person she knew. Now I understand why. Strength isn't about what you can lift, Tyler. It's about standing up for what's right, even when it's hard. Even when it's your own family? Especially then. We drove home together, past the cemetery where Rachel rested, toward a future built on truth instead of lies. The mission was complete. The next generation was safe, honor restored,